Haley walked into a Manhattan divorce hearing alone, while her wealthy husband arrived with a wall of lawyers and a plan to freeze her money and take their child. Everyone treated her like she was already finished, until she quietly started filing paperwork that didn't match his story. If you've lived anything like this, share what happened to you in the comments. In the divorce courtroom at Foley Square, everyone acted like Haley Carter was already done. Grant Whitmore sat across from her with 5 attorneys and 2 rolling bins. Haley had a thin file folder, a pen, and the kind of posture people mistake for surrender. The clerk called the case. One of Grant's lawyers rose before the judge finished clearing her throat. "Your Honor, we're requesting temporary orders today," he said. "We're asking for primary physical custody and for the joint accounts to be frozen pending equitable distribution." The judge's gaze moved to Haley's empty chair beside her. "Miss Carter, where is your attorney?" Haley set her pen down, careful not to tap it. "I don't have one today." Grant shifted in his seat like he owned the bench. When the judge turned back to the lawyer, Grant leaned toward Haley's row, close enough that she could hear him over the rustle of suits. "You're still trying to do this yourself?" he murmured. She kept her face level. "Yeah," she said. "At least I'm not splitting my legal bill by head count." Grant's mouth tightened. One paralegal near him stopped writing for a beat, then kept going. The lawyer launched into a tidy story. Haley was erratic, cold, not suited for day-to-day parenting. He used words like stability and structure as if they were items Grant could buy in bulk. Haley answered when the judge asked, short and factual, giving times, school pickup routines, doctor names. No speeches, no pleading. The judge set a deadline for Haley's written response and supporting documents. Thursday at 4 p.m. She set the next hearing date before either side could argue about it. When Haley opened her folder to check her notes, a colored tab was gone. The page it marked was not there. She slid her thumb along the edge, counting, then closed the folder again. In the hallway, she asked a court staffer if anyone had handled her bag during the break. He lowered his voice. "Hallway cameras are down today," he said. "Yeah, I know. Weird timing." Grant appeared with his lawyers, laughing too loudly at nothing. As he passed, he let a sentence spill into the corridor. "She doesn't have anyone behind her," he said, like it was a fact on a spreadsheet. A couple waiting near the elevators glanced at Haley, then away. By the time the temporary orders were entered, Haley had hours to provide a full pickup schedule and copies of school records. She walked fast toward the exit, already dialing the school office. The call rang once, twice. Her phone flashed a new alert as people pressed past her toward the doors. "Joint account access restricted." She paused, thumb hovering over the alert. The school secretary answered, brisk and rehearsed. "Ms. Carter, we were told pickup changed." "Nothing changed," Haley said. A man bumped her shoulder and her folder slid against her ribs. By the time Haley gets off the phone with the school, she is already moving toward the subway stairs with her folder pressed against her side like it might slide away again. The secretary repeats the same sentence twice, as if volume will make it true. "We were told pickup changed." "It didn't," Haley says. "Then you'll need to email us from the address on file." "I will." The call ends. Another alert blinks on her screen about the joint account restriction. Then a second one about a credit card payment failing. She doesn't stop to stare at it. The sidewalk around Foley Square has its usual swarm of people who look like they know exactly where they're going. Haley fits right in by walking fast and not looking up. On the downtown platform, she opens her banking app long enough to screenshot the restrictions, then switches to passwords. Email first. The phone asks if she wants to sign out other devices. She taps yes. Then the cloud storage. Then the custody app Grant's lawyer insisted on using. Her fingers move in a practiced rhythm that matches the train schedule better than her day does. A text comes through before the doors even close. "Only communicate through my counsel." Grant follows it with a photo of their child holding a bagel bigger than their face. No caption, Just the picture. Like bait. Haley saves it without replying and shifts her folder onto her lap. She notices a smudge on the corner where someone else's hand could have been. The train lurches and her shoulder bumps a pole. She doesn't apologize. No one looks up. Midtown smells like coffee and impatience. The bank lobby is already busy with people who want something fixed immediately. Haley badges through, nods at security, and heads for the elevators. A coworker she usually jokes with offers a thin smile that doesn't quite land. "Morning," he says. "Morning," she answers and keeps walking. Her inbox is worse than she expects. An internal reminder from IT sits at the top. Please do not use bank systems for personal legal matters. It's addressed to everyone. It feels like it's addressed to her. 10 minutes later, HR calls. "Haley, can you come up for a moment?" She doesn't ask why. She grabs a notebook, leaves her folder in a locked drawer, and rides the elevator to a floor that always feels too polished for real life. The HR manager, a woman with perfect hair and a neutral voice, gestures to a chair. "We received an unusual call," the woman says. "A man asked if you were under investigation and whether the bank considered you a risk." Haley keeps her hands on her knees. "Did he give his name?" He didn't. He implied he was calling on behalf of counsel. "I'm not under investigation," Haley says. "I'm getting divorced." HR nods like she's heard the word divorce before, but not in a way that involves a targeted phone call. "We're documenting it. Please don't discuss personal matters on the floor." "I don't," Haley says. When she gets back downstairs, two people stop talking near the copier. It could be coincidence. It doesn't feel like it. She prints a single page from her personal email by forwarding it to herself, then catches her own reflection in the glass of the printer. The face looking back doesn't look surprised. That bothers her more than the whispers. At lunch, she walks to the school to drop off a signed form the secretary asked for. Parents cluster near the entrance, trading updates about teachers and after-school programs. Conversations soften when she approaches. A woman Haley has seen at pickup, someone she's nodded to for months, tilts her head. "Are you okay?" the woman asks, already knowing the answer she wants. "I'm fine," Haley says. The woman's eyes flick toward Haley's hand, where the folder edge peeks out of her tote. "If you need anything..." Haley nods once. "Thanks." Back at the bank, Marisol Vega catches her at the compliance printer, where Haley is pulling certified statements from a secure terminal. Marisol doesn't ask what happened. She sets a form on the counter, sliding it toward Haley with 2 fingers. "If you need a stamped copy," Marisol says, "do it through the process. Don't get creative." Haley signs where the sticky note points. "I wasn't planning to." Marisol glances at Haley's phone as another message appears from Grant's attorney, paragraphs stacked like a wall. "They write this much," Marisol says, "and they still call you uncommunicative?" Haley exhales through her nose and pockets the phone without answering. The afternoon drags. She scans documents in short bursts, saving everything twice, labeling files with dates, then locking them away. Near 5, a new email arrives from the law firm representing Grant. The subject line is cheerful in a way that feels aggressive. Discovery requests and notice of meeting. Attachments pile underneath, page after page, demands for statements, records, calendars, explanations. A meeting invite pings with a time that assumes Haley has no job, no child, and no need to sleep. Her phone vibrates again. A notification from the custody app appears. Pickup schedule updated. Haley reached the Upper West Side with her coat half on and the custody app open. The update listed Grant as tomorrow's pickup contact, plus a new authorized alternate field left blank. She walked into the school office and set her tote on the counter. The secretary didn't bother with small talk. "Miss Carter, we already processed your change." "I didn't request a change," Haley said. The secretary turned her monitor toward her. "We got an email from you at 3:12. It asked that Mr. Whitmore's driver handle pickup all week." Haley held out her hand. "Please print it." The page slid across the counter. At a glance, it looked like her usual clipped tone, except the signature had an extra comma and her phone number was missing a digit. "I need your IT extension," Haley said. The secretary wrote it down, then added, almost apologetic, "Please don't drag the school into this." "I'm trying to keep you out of it," Haley said. In the hallway, she called the extension. "This is Trevor," a man answered. "I need the full header from an email you received today," Haley said. "What's the ticket number?" "I don't have one." "Then I can't release logs." Haley paused, then changed the ask. "Can you tell me whether it came from the account on file?" Trevor exhaled. "It came through forwarding," he said, "not from our network." "Thank you," Haley said, and hung up. On the walk to the subway, Grant's message appeared like it had been scheduled. "Only communicate through my counsel." A second later, a photo of their child with a lopsided grin loaded underneath. No caption. Haley saved the image and screenshot the message, then locked her phone. At Foley Square, she waited at the clerk's window and asked for certified copies of the temporary order and the supporting filing. The clerk took her ID and returned with a stapled packet. $3 a page, the clerk said. "Of course," Haley replied. She sat on a bench and scanned for dates first. The motion for temporary orders had been filed at 8:47 p.m. last Sunday. Her shared calendar still showed Grant at their apartment then. Family dinner, an entry he had insisted on adding himself. She kept turning pages. Grant's business address was typed with one digit swapped. It wasn't enough to fail delivery, but it was enough to claim mistake later. An attached affidavit carried a signature that matched the lawyer's name, yet looked traced, the final loop too slow. Haley circled the 3 spots with her pen and put the packet back together. By the time she reached Midtown again, the lobby ATM declined her card. She didn't argue with the machine. At the service desk, she asked for a record of recent access changes on the joint accounts. The teller slid a packet toward her. "I'll need this completed," he said, "and your ID." 6 pages, security questions, device history, a list of addresses going back a decade. Haley stared at it, then looked up. "Am I getting divorced?" she said, "or applying to the CIA?" The teller didn't react. "Initial here," he said. She signed, showed her license, and waited while he called a supervisor. After a brief review, a single sheet printed. It showed online access permissions changed at 9:03 a.m., authorized from a device Haley didn't recognize. She photographed it and headed upstairs to her floor. Marisol Vega was by the compliance printer, scanning a stack with the patience of someone who'd seen too much paperwork to be impressed. Haley set the access sheet down. "Someone changed permissions," she said. Marisol read it once, then again. "This isn't a couples fight," Marisol said. "This is process being used as a weapon." Haley opened a fresh folder from her drawer and slid the bank sheet behind the certified court copies and the printed school email. The old folder, the one that had lost a tab, went into her tote without ceremony. At her desk, she pulled up her personal email and checked the message properties on the copy the secretary had forwarded back. The routing path didn't match anything she used. Haley wrote the line of numbers and servers on a sticky note, folded it, and tucked it into the new folder. Outside, streetlights flickered on while people hurried past like nothing had changed. Haley stopped at the corner, opened her contacts, and scrolled until a number she hadn't touched in years appeared. Her thumb pressed call. Across the street, a delivery truck backed up, beeping. She waited for the light, folder tight under her arm, and checked that her screenshots had saved. The phone rang once, kept ringing while she crossed Broadway, folder tight under her arm. No one picked up. The screen flipped to voicemail, and she ended it before the beep, as if the phone might record her breathing. At the next corner, she opened the custody app again, checked the updated pickup note, then walked to the penthouse anyway. Grant had insisted months ago that home base mattered for their child. Now the address looked like a place she was visiting without permission. In the lobby, the doorman recognized her and hesitated long enough to make it obvious he'd been warned. "Morning, Miss Carter," he said, not meeting her eyes. Haley headed for the elevator. A security guard stepped sideways, blocking the call button with his shoulder. "I'm on the list," Haley said. He held out a laminated sheet on a clipboard. It had unit numbers, names, and notes written in neat black marker. "I'm just following the list," he said. "Show me," Haley replied. Her name sat there with a short line next to it. No access. Below it, Grant's name had a star. Haley adjusted her tote strap. "I need my kid's documents," she said. "Passport, birth certificate, insurance card." The guard's expression stayed blank, like he'd practiced it. "You can request items through management," he said. "Management doesn't hold the birth certificate," Haley said. A woman from the building, someone who'd once asked Haley for a pediatrician recommendation, walked past and slowed down to watch. That woman's gaze flicked to the clipboard, then to Haley's face, then away like she'd just remembered an appointment. Haley pulled up Grant's contact and hit call. It went through fast like he'd been waiting. "What is this?" she asked. Grant answered in a warm voice that sounded built for an audience. "Haley, don't do this here." "I'm trying to pick up documents for our child," she said. A soft click came through the line. Another click followed. Grant didn't have to say he was recording. He made sure she could hear it. "I'm not refusing anything," Grant said. "I'm asking you to calm down." "I'm calm," Haley said. The guard stared at the lobby floor. The doorman pretended to straighten a stack of mail. Grant lowered his voice the way he did when he wanted the other person to sound unreasonable. "You're spiraling. I have counsel. You should talk to yours." "I don't have access to my home," Haley said. "You changed the locks." Grant's tone stayed steady, patient. "I updated the code. For security." "Security from me," Haley said. "From chaos," Grant corrected, and she could hear the smile. Haley ended the call and turned to the guard. "I'm not leaving without my child's papers," she said. A building manager appeared, dressed like a man who never carried anything heavy. He held a set of keys and a small rolling cart. "We have a few personal items packed," he said, "per Mr. Whitmore's request." The cart had taped boxes stacked on it, each labeled with Haley's name in block letters, like a storage unit. One label read, "Kitchen." Another read, "Closet." None read, "Documents." Haley opened the top box. Inside were sweaters folded too neatly to be hers, and a framed photo placed face down. "Where are the legal papers?" she asked. "Those weren't included," the manager said. "So you packed my life," Haley replied, "and skipped the stuff that keeps a child insured." The manager cleared his throat. "You can submit a written request." Haley pulled out her pen, signed the clipboard when the guard pushed it toward her, then slid it back. "At least today there's something with my name on it," she said, barely loud enough for anyone else to claim they heard. She loaded the boxes onto the cart, then dragged her suitcase through the revolving door. The neighbor from earlier lingered by the front desk, lips tight. "You should know your place," the woman said, like it was advice. Haley didn't stop walking. She stepped onto the sidewalk, hailed down a cab, and gave the driver her pharmacy's address. At the pharmacy, she asked for the children's allergy medication that usually sat ready behind the counter. The pharmacist scanned the barcode, tapped keys, then frowned at the screen. "It's declined," he said. Haley handed over a different card, declined again. She nodded once, like he'd told her the weather, and asked for the cash price. The pharmacist read it out. Haley paid, took the bag, and stepped outside as her phone buzzed with a new email notification. From Grant's law firm. Short subject line, long message. "We will seek a protective order if you continue to harass our client." She stared at the screen until the text stopped swimming, then started toward the corner with her suitcase rolling behind her. Halfway down the steps, her phone rang again. The caller ID showed the school. Haley answered as she stepped off the curb, voice level, eyes on the traffic. "Miss Carter," the school secretary said, "your child's pickup for tomorrow is listed as Mr. Whitmore's driver. Is that correct?" Haley kept walking, eyes tracking the crosswalk countdown. "No," she said, "that's not correct. Please don't release my child to anyone not listed on the original form." "We have an email," the secretary replied. "It looks like it came from you." "Forward it to me," Haley said, "and lock the file until you hear from me in person." She ended the call before the secretary could argue about procedure, then stepped onto the next curb and opened her notes app. One line became 3. Time of call, name of secretary, what the app changed. The list didn't fix anything, but it gave her something that didn't move. Back on the compliance floor, she didn't sit down first. The folder went into her locked drawer, her phone into her pocket, and her badge brought her into a restricted terminal area where people asked fewer questions. A manager glanced up and started to smile, then remembered whatever rumor had reached him. "Everything okay?" he asked, in a voice that wasn't curious. "I'm working," Haley said, and logged in. She used her break to pull public filings and internal vendor references available through approved channels. Grant's company had accounts at their bank. She was not allowed to view anything non-public. That line was clear enough to be comforting. So she stayed on the permitted side and looked for patterns the way she did for living. Repetition, vague descriptions, neat rounding. A set of reimbursement items surfaced through a shared document Grant had once sent her when they still pretended transparency was romance. The amounts weren't huge. They were just consistent. Every 2 weeks, almost the same number, labeled Client Development or Travel Incidentals. The vendor name was unfamiliar. Haley copied it into a separate note, then searched it the way anyone would, not the way an investigator would. The address attached to the vendor matched a short-term rental building she recognized from a photo Grant had posted last year. Brick lobby, generic art, the kind of place people used when they didn't want mail. She didn't label it proof. She didn't write mistress. She wrote vendor address overlaps. At lunch, she took her sandwich to a small cafe near the courthouse, because the Wi-Fi was steady and the barista didn't look up unless you ordered. Marisol found her anyway, sliding into the chair across from her without asking. Marisol's eyes went to the stack of printed papers. "Please tell me you didn't print at your desk," Marisol said. Haley tapped the top page. "Secure printer, logged, retrieved." Marisol nodded like she'd just heard a weather report. "What are you chasing?" Haley flipped a page and pointed to the vendor line, then the address. "It's odd." Marisol read it, then leaned back. "Odd is a hobby," she said. "This is leverage." Haley kept her voice flat. "If I pull on this and it's nothing, he'll say I'm unstable." Marisol lifted her coffee. "Once they freeze your money, you're left with the truth," she said. "But the truth needs paperwork." On the wall near the register, a laminated sign declared, "Customer Privacy Notice," in cheerful font. Haley looked at it a second longer than she meant to. "That's reassuring," she said, barely above a murmur. "I wish marriages came with one of those." Marisol's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Some do," she said. "They're called prenups. Rich men forget that part when they're in love." Haley finished her sandwich, folded her napkin into a tight square, and stood. The choice sat in front of her like 2 doors. One led to custody and nothing else. Play defense, stay small, accept whatever Grant called reasonable. The other required stepping into his business, where he'd have allies, lawyers, and time. She didn't say any of that out loud. She picked up her papers and made a decision by moving. At the bank, she requested certified statements for her own accounts and any joint accounts she could lawfully access, plus a stamped record of access changes. She photographed each page, then uploaded duplicates to a personal cloud folder under a name that sounded boring enough to survive a casual search. The timeline got rewritten in clean ink on a legal pad. Dates, times, who said what changed. Each line ended with a source, not an opinion. At the service desk, a supervisor handed her a sealed envelope with the bank stamp across the flap. "Don't open it if you need it for court," the supervisor said. "Chain of custody." "I won't," Haley replied. She left through the revolving doors and almost walked straight into a man lingering near the entrance, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed on the lobby as if he was waiting for someone to emerge. He simply shifted his weight when she appeared, like a cue had been met. Haley changed direction without hesitation, angling toward the subway stairs instead of the corner she usually used. Her grip tightened on the envelope as she took the steps 2 at a time, and when the train doors started to slide shut, she slipped through with the paper pressed hard against her ribs. In the stairwell, she checked her phone for new custody updates, then shut the screen off when Grant's name appeared. Her apartment was 2 rooms and a borrowed air mattress, but the lock turned with her key, and that mattered. She set the envelope beside her folder, washed her hands, and started a list. Tomorrow, school call, doctor, copies, and the courthouse clerk. The next morning, she went to the pediatrician's office before work because their file held what Grant had left out of his boxes. The receptionist recognized her and slid a release form across the counter. "Photo ID, please." Haley handed it over, signed, and waited while the printer hummed. A certified immunization record came first, then an insurance card copy with the policy number that matched the old account. She tucked everything into a new folder with colored tabs she bought at a bodega. At the school, she updated pickup instructions in person and asked for a receipt on record. Pickup that afternoon went smoothly, almost suspiciously. Grant waited at the curb with their child and said nothing beyond logistics. 5 minutes, he told the driver. Haley buckled the car seat, checked the backpack for the inhaler, and didn't comment on the new suitcase tag that read, Whitmore. Grant's phone was raised just enough to suggest he could be filming, yet he never aimed it directly. When she closed the door, he gave a small nod, like a landlord confirming rent. The car pulled away. Haley watched it turn, then headed for the subway, resisting the urge to look back. Her therapist's office sat above a laundromat, which felt appropriate for a week spent sorting other people's messes. The mediator had suggested co-parenting counseling, and Haley showed up because compliance instincts don't skip appointments. The therapist asked practical questions about schedules and the court app, then paused. "Do you have a support system?" Haley opened her calendar and tilted the phone screen. "I have reminders," she said. "It doesn't hug me, but it's on time." The therapist wrote something down without smiling. When the session ended, Haley left with a printed attendance note and a next date set for Tuesday. That evening, her temporary mailbox had been opened. The flap sat bent, and the usual junk mail lay scattered instead of stacked. Upstairs, a security alert waited in her email. New login from an unfamiliar device, location masked. She changed the password again, enabled 2-factor, and printed the notice for her folder. Through the window, a sedan idled across the street longer than normal. When she stepped away, it rolled forward a few feet and stopped again. Haley didn't stare. She zipped the folder into her tote, set her child's documents on the highest shelf, and packed a charger too. Before bed, she reviewed the bank packet under the kitchen light. One statement line had a reference code, not just a merchant name, and it matched the reimbursement entry she'd copied earlier. The description stayed vague, travel, but the posting date fell on the weekend Grant claimed he was at a conference. Haley wrote the code on an index card, then stapled it behind the certified access log. On the top of her legal pad, she circled the court deadline again, Thursday, 4 p.m., Foley Square. She added a second circle around Tuesday's counseling note, because paper trails liked company these days. At her desk, she drafted a message to an address she still remembered by muscle memory. The subject line read, "Temporary orders filing, copies attached." The body had 2 sentences. Requesting representation, hearing scheduled. Please confirm receipt. She attached the certified court packet, the bank access record, the school email printout, and the page with the transaction code highlighted. Then she sent it and turned off read receipts. A second email went to Grant's counsel, politely requesting retrieval of the child's passport and birth certificate within 24 hours. She didn't add emojis. She added timestamps and saved copies to her backup. The next day's pickup ran late, and by the time Haley got her child settled with dinner, the hallway outside her unit had gone still. She put the new folder on the table, kept the bank envelope sealed, and scanned a page for her notes. The doorbell rang once, then again. She opened the door to a man with a packet and a clipboard. "Haley Carter?" "Yes?" "You've been served." He pressed the papers toward her before she could step back. The first line read, "Petition for emergency relief," and her hand tightened on the corner as he turned away. Haley reaches Foley Square before the lines at security swell, folder under her arm and the emergency petition folded in her coat pocket. The process server's stamp is still fresh on the paper, and Grant's lawyer has already emailed a friendly reminder about the hearing time. She signs in, empties her bag, and walks past the courtroom doors with the same steady pace she uses at work when an audit report is due. A few benches are filled with people clutching manila envelopes. No one looks like they slept. Grant is easy to spot. He sits at counsel table in a tailored suit, surrounded by a row of attorneys and a paralegal typing without looking up. 2 rolling bins wait beside them like luggage for a long trip. Haley takes her place at the other table, alone, with a fresh folder and 1 pen. Behind her, a man she doesn't recognize settles into the gallery. He wears a dark jacket and holds his phone low, thumb moving in quick notes. When Haley shifts in her chair, he glances up, then back down, as if she's a line item. The clerk calls the case. The judge looks from Grant's side to Haley's empty chair and pauses. "Ms. Carter, do you have counsel today?" Haley stands when addressed, hands visible on the table edge. "Not today, Your Honor." One of Grant's attorneys rises immediately. His voice is practiced, calm enough to sound reasonable while he asks for everything. "We're requesting expanded temporary custody," he says, "and permission for Mr. Whitmore to take the child outside Manhattan on weekends for a healthier environment." Haley opens her folder, keeping her eyes on the judge, not on Grant. The papers are in order. The missing tab from last week is replaced with a new one, bright and labeled in her handwriting. The attorney plays an audio clip from his phone. It's the lobby call, chopped into sharp edges. Haley demanding, Grant soothing, the building staff silent. The clip ends right before the part where she asks for the child's passport. The judge's eyebrows lift. She doesn't rule, but she turns her head slightly toward Haley, the way people do when they're deciding whether to believe you. "Ms. Carter, is that your voice?" Haley nods once. "Yes, Your Honor. The clip is incomplete." She doesn't explain how it was cut. She asks for the full recording and offers her written request for the documents, dated and sent through counsel's email address. The attorney objects, saying she's trying to introduce exhibits without proper foundation. Grant leans back, arms spread along the chair as if he's waiting for the verdict on a stock price. He angles his head toward his lawyers, then toward Haley, and says it loud enough for the gallery. "She doesn't have anyone behind her." A couple people glance at Haley like they expect her to shrink. She doesn't. She looks at Grant the way she looks at a bad spreadsheet. Annoyed, but fixable. "You say that like you're selling a defective product." Grant's lawyer clears his throat and keeps talking, switching to the child's best interest, as if that phrase cancels out the part where the accounts were frozen. The man in the gallery taps faster on his phone. Haley's phone is off, but she feels its weight in her pocket, like a reminder that every message is a record. She watches the judge, waiting for the next question, ready to answer with dates and documents, not feelings. The judge lifts a hand. "We'll proceed," she begins, and the clerk stands to read a notice. "Appearance has been filed on behalf of Miss Haley Carter," the clerk says, "by a New York law firm." Heads turn. Grant's attorneys trade quick looks. Haley keeps her hands folded, as if the announcement doesn't change the temperature of the room. The judge glances toward the door. The handle moves. A line of people in suits steps in, one after another, shoes striking the stone floor in the same measured rhythm. Haley stays seated, eyes forward, while the murmurs build behind her. Grant sits up straighter, his smile pulling tight at the corners. One paralegal stops typing. The man in the gallery lowers his phone, then raises it again, slower now, like he's trying to act casual. The lead attorney from the new group hands a card to the bailiff and leans to whisper. The bailiff nods and moves toward the bench. The judge's eyes flick to Haley, then back to the newcomers. "Counsel, approach," the judge says. Haley rose when the judge called counsel forward. The lead attorney who had entered last sat at her table and opened a slim briefcase. He didn't introduce himself yet. He simply placed a notice of appearance on top of her folder and nodded toward the bench. Then another man stepped in beside him. Older, silver-haired, posture straight from habit. Haley recognized him before he spoke. Daniel Carter didn't look at Grant first. He looked at Haley, as if checking whether she was standing. The last time she'd seen her father, they had argued over pride and distance, not custody orders. Daniel addressed the court without raising his voice. Your Honor, Daniel Carter for Ms. Carter, with Carter and Hale, LLP. We filed this morning and served opposing counsel. Grant's attorney started to object. The judge lifted a hand. I see the filing, she said. You're here properly. Daniel set a binder on the table, tabs aligned. We received Ms. Carter's materials under the deadline you set, he said. We're prepared to proceed on temporary issues and preservation. Haley watched Grant's jaw work once, then still. Behind her, the note-taking man shifted, thumbs pausing, like he'd lost the script for once. Grant's counsel returned to custody, repeating the healthier environment line. Daniel didn't argue about parks or schools. He asked for the full recording referenced earlier and offered Haley's written request for the child's passport and birth certificate timestamped. The judge read, then looked over her glasses. Mr. Whitmore, you don't get to withhold documents and then claim the other parent is disorganized. Grant's lawyer protested. The judge cut him off. We are setting expedited discovery, she said, and I'm warning both sides. Destruction or hiding of evidence will be sanctioned. A schedule was read, dates landing like stamps on paper. During a short pause, Daniel leaned toward Haley, not touching her papers. What boundary do you want? He asked. Haley kept her eyes on the bench. I want my child safe, she said. Everything else, do it by the book. Daniel nodded once and stood again. Facing Grant's team, he scanned the crowded tables with a neutral expression. It's packed in here today, he said. Hope everyone remembered to pay for parking. One of Grant's attorneys blinked, then frowned, as if unsure whether to laugh or object. Haley didn't react. She slid her folder closer and waited for the question. The judge issued a narrow adjustment. Pickup would follow the original school form, no third-party driver, and both parents would use the court app for changes. Grant's counsel asked for relocation weekends again. The judge denied it for now. Not without a complete record, she said. Daniel requested immediate production of the child's documents. The judge ordered it within 24 hours. Grant stared at his lawyer, then at the table, as if someone had moved the ground. In the gallery, the note-taking man stopped typing and looked up, finally. Haley gathered her papers as the judge set the next date. In the hallway, Daniel walked beside her without trying to steer her. We got your email, he said. You sent what mattered. Haley adjusted the strap of her tote. I didn't want to pull you in, she replied. I know, Daniel said, like he'd heard that excuse from clients and family. A younger associate handed Haley a card with a direct number and a short list of documents to request. Haley read it once and tucked it behind the stamped bank envelope, keeping the seal intact. Grant's side poured out of the courtroom, and people watched as if she'd cheated. Grant caught his lead attorney by the sleeve near the water fountain. Who are they? He hissed. The attorney murmured back, eyes on Daniel's business card. Haley walked past them, not slowing, because stopping turned into conversations, and conversations turned into traps. Daniel didn't follow. He spoke with the associate, pointing toward the clerk's window. Haley's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen without unlocking it and saw Grant's name, then the preview. If you play like this, I'll play bigger. Her thumb hovered over reply, then dropped. She turned toward the elevators and joined the line. The elevator arrived with a soft bell. Haley stepped in and faced the doors, folder held against her coat. Reflections showed strangers, not allies. The phone buzzed again, longer this time, as if Grant expected an answer. She ignored it and pressed the button for her floor in the building where her car was parked. As the doors began to slide, Daniel's voice carried from the hall. Text us the schedule tonight. Daniel Carter's office in Manhattan didn't feel like a rescue. It felt like a system that expected receipts, timestamps, and people who could keep their voice steady while someone tried to take their kid. Haley sat at the end of a conference table with her new folder open. Daniel and two associates reviewed her documents without commenting on her marriage, only the record. The deposition and mediation were moved up, an associate said. Next week, not next month. Daniel slid a printout across the table. Whitmore filed again, he said. Relocation. School stability. He wants the court to treat Manhattan like a temporary stop. Haley looked at the dates, then at the pickup schedule the judge had ordered. The next hearing time was circled in ink, the same way she circled deadlines at work. Daniel didn't wait for her to react. If we keep this strictly custody and personal assets, you're dealing with family court pressure, he said. If we touch his company's money, you're dealing with everything else too. What does everything else look like? Haley asked. Public relations, Daniel said. Calls to your employer. Friends suddenly remembering stories about you. Motions designed to exhaust you. He'll say you're vindictive. He'll say you're unstable. He'll try to make the process the punishment. Haley nodded once, as if he'd just listed weather conditions. She didn't argue. She asked what documents he needed next and wrote them down. After the meeting, she went straight to the school because paper trails didn't matter if the front desk still had the wrong pickup name. The secretary printed a new authorization page. Haley signed it and asked the secretary to initial the timestamp. We really don't want to be in the middle, the secretary said. I don't either, Haley replied, but he keeps trying to put you there. Pickup that afternoon stayed orderly. Grant stood back, spoke only to confirm the handoff, and watched her buckle their child into the car seat like he was counting seconds. You'll upload your notes, he said, meaning the court app. I will, Haley answered. He didn't push. The lack of pressure felt off, like a door left open on purpose. That night, her temporary apartment settled into its small routines. Dinner, bath, a storybook. Her child fell asleep fast, one arm flung over the stuffed animal Haley had bought to replace the one that disappeared with the boxes. Haley cleaned the kitchen without lingering, then sat at the table with her folder, her phone, and the bank alert still showing restricted access. For a few minutes, she didn't move. The calm in the room wasn't peace. It was a gap in the noise, and she could feel someone on the other side of it waiting for her to fill it the wrong way. She looked from her child's door to the custody app icon, then to the transaction reference code she'd highlighted. If she aimed only at custody, Grant would keep using money and procedure as leverage. If she aimed wider, she'd be inviting a fight with a longer reach. The next buzz came from Marisol, not Grant. It was a photo of a stamped document with the edges cropped tight, plus a single line. I'm not saying you have to use this. I just hate watching people win with fake paperwork. Haley saved it to her backup folder and replied with 2 words. Received. Thanks. In the morning, Daniel's associate emailed a short list. Authorization forms, a preservation notice, and an option for forensic accounting. Haley printed them at the bank's secure station, logged the job, and picked up the pages herself. Marisol passed by and didn't slow down, only left her coffee cup near Haley's keyboard like a placeholder for conversation. Haley signed the first page, then the second. The third asked for consent to pursue a deeper financial trace connected to Grant's company. She read the line twice, then picked up the pen again. First time I've signed something that isn't, I agree, she said, mostly to the paper. No one laughed. Marisol didn't need to. She simply pointed to the next line. And this one, Marisol said, because they love deleting things when they get nervous. Haley signed the preservation notice as well and watched the associate scan it into a secure portal. Minutes later, confirmations came back. Service scheduled, requests logged, deadline set. The deposition notice arrived for the same afternoon, moved earlier than promised. Daniel's office texted her the address and the room number. Haley left the bank, met her child's babysitter at the apartment door, and rode the elevator down without checking whether anyone waited across the street. At the law office hosting the deposition, the receptionist asked for ID and handed her a visitor badge. Haley walked past framed certificates and into a short hallway with closed doors. An assistant gestured toward the last conference room. They're ready for you, she said. Haley took the seat nearest the door, folder on the table, palms flat until the court reporter finished setting up. Grant sat across from her, relaxed, jacket unbuttoned, as if this were a brunch reservation he'd made weeks ago. His attorney introduced everyone: the mediator, The reporter, the associate from Daniel's firm. Names landed and slid off. The recorder light stayed steady. "On the record," the reporter said. Grant leaned forward first. "You dragged your whole family in to ruin me," he said, voice soft, wounded on purpose. Haley looked at the mediator, not at him. "We're here because you filed an emergency petition," she said. Grant's attorney smiled like she'd proven a point. "Ms. Carter is reactive," the attorney said. "She escalates, then hides behind others." Daniel's associate kept his pen moving. "Question and answer," he said. "Let's keep it clean." Grant's attorney flipped a page. "Ms. Carter, you cut off contact with your family for years, correct?" Haley answered without searching for the right tone. "Yes." "And now, suddenly, they're here. So which Haley is the court supposed to believe?" The mediator lifted a hand. "Just answer," she said. Haley's mouth stayed closed a beat too long. Then she spoke. "The same one," she said. Grant's attorney continued, building a neat staircase out of half-truths. "You've moved residences twice in 1 month. You don't have consistent childcare. You don't have stable support." Haley slid a printed school authorization across the table. "Pickup is consistent," she said. "Your client keeps trying to change it." Grant's attorney didn't touch the paper. "We'll address that later." Then she brought out a different packet, glossy and too tidy. "Let's talk about your paperwork," she said. "We have concerns you've been accessing financial records you're not entitled to." She pushed a screenshot toward Haley. It showed a login page, her name in a corner, a timestamp. Haley recognized the time, a morning she'd been at the pediatrician. "That's not my device," she said. Grant's attorney tilted her head. "Are you denying you gathered statements?" she asked. "I requested certified copies of my accounts," Haley said, "and the joint accounts I'm listed on." Grant's attorney's smile widened. "So you admit it," she said. "You're digging through his company's finances. That's a violation. We're prepared to countersue." Grant added, gentle as a sermon. "See," he said, "this is what I deal with. She gets obsessive." Haley set her pen down so the click wouldn't shake. "I did not access your company accounts," she said. "I documented access changes on mine." The mediator looked at the screenshot, then at Grant's attorney. "Do you have proof she accessed corporate accounts?" she asked. "We have reason to believe," the attorney said. The mediator wrote something on her pad. "Noted," she said. "And I'm noting concern about escalating tactics on both sides." Grant's attorney seized the opening. "Given Miss Carter's volatility," she said, "we request communication be limited to the court app only." Haley kept her face still, but her fingers folded the corner of her folder once, then flattened it again. The mediator nodded. "For now," she said, "all changes and discussions go through the app." Daniel's associate objected, pointing to Grant's repeated unilateral changes. Grant's attorney responded with a motion she'd filed that morning, a protective order request limiting company-related discovery until further notice. The mediator didn't grant it, but she didn't deny it either. "We'll take it up with the judge," she said. "Today, we're focusing on temporary parenting terms." When the deposition ended, Haley walked out with her folder heavier and her options smaller. In the lobby, Daniel's associate spoke into his phone, already scheduling filings. Haley's phone rang before she reached the doors. HR. She answered. "Haley, this is Karen," the HR manager said. "We received a complaint alleging misuse of bank resources." Haley stopped near a column, out of the flow. "I haven't misused anything," she said. "We're placing you on administrative leave while we review," Karen said. "Effective immediately." Haley glanced at the email that arrived while Karen spoke. Subject line, formal and cold. "I'm being suspended for being organized," Haley said. "On brand for me." Karen didn't respond to the tone. "Please return your badge tomorrow," she said. Outside, the air was sharp. Haley crossed to the parking lot, keys in hand, eyes on the rows of cars. Grant stood near her driver's side door, hands in his pockets like he belonged there too. "You thought they'd help you?" he said, low. Haley stopped short, then stepped back, opening her notes app with her thumb. Her finger hovered over record as Grant took one slow step closer. He angled his body to block the aisle. A passing valet glanced away. Grant stopped when Haley lifted her phone, the red dot hovering over record. A valet rolled a cart between them, and Grant's smile thinned into something private. "Don't," he said. Haley didn't answer. She walked around the cart, unlocked her car, and drove off. At her walk-up, she checked the backup folder on her laptop before she even took off her shoes. A security email sat at the top. New sign-in, unknown device, 2:14 a.m. She clicked, and the access log spun. 2 files were marked modified, though she hadn't opened them today, and a third folder showed as empty. Haley searched the trash and recent activity, then reopened the bank envelope scan she'd saved twice. The image loaded, then flickered into a broken link. Her stomach didn't drop, her hands simply moved faster. She checked the local drive, then the cloud backup, then the second backup she'd named kitchen receipts. The court packet was still there, the certified access log was there, the statement with the reference code was gone. On the desk, the USB drive she'd used for a stamped copy was missing too. She checked the lock and saw fresh scratches, narrow and deliberate, beside the latch. By sunrise, she had photos of the scratches, a list of missing items, and a single goal: make it official. At the precinct desk, an officer took her ID and typed without looking up. "Any forced entry?" he asked. "Not enough to break," Haley said. "Enough to borrow." He printed a complaint receipt with an incident number and slid it across. "We can't prove who did it," the officer added. Haley folded the paper into her folder anyway and walked out, calling Daniel's associate from the sidewalk. She left a voicemail. Missing evidence, suspected tampering, and the timestamp alert. At the school, 2 parents paused mid-conversation when she approached the front desk. One of them whispered, not quietly enough, "Isn't she the one being investigated?" Haley signed the visitor log and handed over her updated authorization sheet. The secretary glanced at it, then at her screen. "Mr. Whitmore submitted a change at 6:08 a.m., she said. "He says you're on leave and unreachable." Haley showed the judge's order from last week. The secretary's shoulders sagged. "I'll call the principal," she said. Haley waited by the wall, watching her child's class line up while a few eyes tracked her today. Marisol called before Haley reached the subway. "HR put you on leave?" she asked. "Yes," Haley said, "and someone walked off with my stamped copy." Marisol didn't gasp. She gave instructions. "Request the access logs in writing. Get a time-stamped response. If you reprint, document who touched it and when." Haley opened an email draft on her phone and typed as she walked. "Do not accuse," Marisol added. "Ask for records. Chain of custody is boring, and boring wins." Haley sent the request to IT, then forwarded a copy to Daniel's office, attaching the police incident number without commentary again. Daniel returned her call from a moving car, voice clipped by traffic. "We can't walk into court saying someone hacked her," he said. "If we can't prove it, it reads like blame." Haley didn't argue. She read in the login alert time, the missing file name, the scratched lock photo, and the school's note about the 608 change. Daniel paused. "Good," he said. "That's facts." He told her to preserve her devices and to request the full school email header again. When she asked about the protective order, he said Whitmore's team was pushing hard and the judge might stall. Back at the walk-up, Haley found the hallway light burned out and her door slightly misaligned in the frame. The scratches by the latch looked worse in daylight. She took another photo, then tested the knob. It held. "At least they were polite," she said to no one. "They only took what I need to live." On her desk, the folder waited, gap-toothed without its USB. Her phone buzzed. A court notification. Whitmore had filed an emergency motion, citing her employment instability. Haley forwarded it to Daniel, then slipped the folder and her child's records into her tote. The next morning, the principal confirmed that pickups would follow the standing order until the judge ruled. Haley knelt by the classroom door to straighten a crooked shoelace. Her phone chimed again. A docket alert from Daniel's office. "Hearing scheduled. tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Whitmore requests out-of-state travel for an extended period. She froze, thumb hovering over Daniel's number. The hallway bell split the air. She hit call. It didn't go through. A passing parent brushed her shoulder, but she kept the phone to her ear, waiting for a signal that never came. By the next morning, she was at the school before the bell, tote in hand, the folded motion pressing against her pocket. The secretary nodded toward the IT closet. Trevor appeared at the door, ID lanyard swinging. "You'll need the header," he said. "Yes," Haley replied. "I can't hand out student data." "Well, I'm not asking for that. Just the routing path on the email that came from me." He printed 2 pages and highlighted a block. "This forwarding rule didn't originate from your device," he said. "It hit an external relay first." Haley photographed the lines. "Date and time, please?" Trevor stamped the corner and wrote the time. "There. If someone wants to argue, it won't be with me." Haley walked the pages back to the front desk and set them beside the forged email printout. "I need this attached to the student file," she told the secretary. The secretary swallowed, then initialed the corner. "Are you changing pickup again?" she asked. "No," Haley said. "I'm stopping changes." She asked for a signed receipt showing the school had received her written instruction. No driver, no alternates, and no changes without an in-person ID check. The secretary printed it, signed, and handed it over. At the therapist's office, she arrived early, answered questions in times and places, and asked for a note. "I need observations," Haley said. "No opinions." "I don't take sides," the therapist replied. "I'm not asking you to," Haley said. The therapist printed a paragraph on letterhead. "Miss Carter has been punctual," she read. "She has complied with the recommended co-parenting tools. No concerns observed in session." She signed and added a phone number for verification. Haley filed it behind the school log, then scanned it to her backup before leaving the lobby. Marisol called as Haley headed for the subway. "They'll answer your IT request," Marisol said, "but get certified copies again. Screenshots won't survive a fight." "Where?" "Meet me at the branch. Bring your ID and that police number." At the bank, Haley requested a new stamped access record and a certified statement for the joint account, plus a printout showing the device that changed permissions. The supervisor sealed an envelope and signed across the flap, then wrote his employee ID beneath it. Marisol pointed at the signature. "Chain starts here," she said. "Don't open it." Haley photographed the seal, then emailed the images to Daniel's associate with the time attached. Marisol watched her send it and nodded once. "And ask for a custody app audit log," Marisol added. "Even if they say no, you want the denial in writing." Haley typed the request on her phone while standing at the counter, then stepped aside so the next customer could complain about overdraft fees. Daniel met her with 2 associates. He stacked the therapist note, the school header, the school receipt, the incident number, and the bank envelope, aligning corners like he was building a case. Haley slid the highlighted header on top. "I brought receipts," she said. "Literal ones. Too bad they don't sell them with peace of mind." "Good," Daniel said. "We file." An associate drafted a preservation motion seeking subpoenas for school email logs, any hallway camera records, and account access history from the bank and custody app provider. Daniel signed and handed Haley a time-stamped copy. "Do not change devices," he told her. "Do not open sealed envelopes, and if Whitmore corners you, use the app and walk away." Haley nodded and followed them back to Foley Square. Grant sat with his lawyers, expression tighter than usual. The man from the gallery, phone in hand, was there again, sitting 2 rows behind Haley and pretending he wasn't tracking everything. Grant's counsel argued relocation. Daniel offered the header printout, the school receipt, and the therapist letter. "The school received a forged request," he said. "Ms. Carter has followed every court-ordered tool. We ask the court to preserve records before they vanish." Grant's attorney objected. The judge cut her off. "I'm seeing unilateral changes and missing documentation," she said. "If evidence is destroyed or withheld, sanctions will follow, including fees and adverse inference." She ordered preservation and set a short compliance deadline, then denied relocation for now. Pickup and enrollment stayed as is until the logs came back. Outside, Daniel's team moved to file proof of service. Haley walked toward the elevators, folder pressed to her coat. Her phone buzzed with an updated calendar notice from the firm. Another call came to Daniel from an unknown number. He answered, listened, and slowed. He turned to Haley. "A finance contact flagged something," he said. "Company money moving through a vendor tied to a short-term rental." He watched her, waiting. "If you nod," Daniel said, "we open that door." Haley kept walking, not answering yet. She arrives at the Manhattan courtroom with Daniel Carter on her left and two associates behind them, all carrying binders that look identical. Grant Whitmore is already seated with his attorneys, smiling at the gallery the way he smiles at donors. The judge calls the matter an evidentiary hearing, then confirms Daniel's appearance and authority to examine witnesses. Haley says nothing. She lines her folder with the edge of the table and watches the clerk swear everyone in. Grant's side sets out water bottles like they're hosting a meeting. An officer checks the aisles and closes the door. No drama. Grant takes the stand first, insisting he has always acted for their child's stability. His lawyer feeds him the right phrases, and he repeats them with a steady voice. Daniel waits until Grant finishes, then stands, hands empty. He asks about the frozen accounts, the changed pickup notices, the missing passport. Grant answers with practiced patience, calling each issue a misunderstanding. Daniel pivots to timing, reading filing timestamps aloud. Grant glances toward Haley, amused, then leans into the microphone. "She doesn't have anyone behind her." The gallery stirs. Haley's side holds steady, one full row of Carter attorneys watching him. Daniel doesn't look up from his notes. He walks Grant through the school email, the header logs, and the court-ordered preservation letters. He asks Grant whether he has ever changed a document after filing. Grant denies it. Daniel produces the police incident number for the scratched lock and the bank's certified access report, showing an unknown device authorized at 9:03 a.m. Grant's lawyer objects, but the judge allows it for limited purpose. Daniel's tone never rises. Each question lands like a stamp, pushing Grant's answers into narrower spaces. Haley keeps her eyes on the judge, not on Grant's smile fading. Then Daniel opens a second binder marked Financial. He asks Grant about a vendor called Hudson Suites LLC. Grant says he doesn't recognize it. Daniel places a chart on the easel. Reimbursements every 2 weeks, coded as travel, each paid from the company account. The reference codes match charges to a short-term rental address, the same address attached to Hudson Suites. Daniel reads the weekend dates Grant claimed he was at a conference. The bank statement shows airfare and a hotel deposit on those exact days, billed to the company card. Grant's lawyer rises. The judge gestures him down quickly. Grant's attorney objects that corporate spending is irrelevant to custody. Daniel turns slightly, voice even. "I'll respond. This is marital waste and fraud, Your Honor." He shows receipts for a rented apartment, a jewelry charge, and a wire to a personal account tied to the same vendor. The timeline lines up with the weeks Haley's access disappeared, the school emails changed, and the hallway camera went down. Daniel asks Grant one last time whether he used company funds for a relationship outside the marriage. Grant's answer comes late. He says no, then yes, then says it was business, and swallows hard. Grant's attorney tries to redirect to Haley's instability, raising the HR leave as proof. Daniel lifts a finger, not dramatic. Permission. Our exhibits are numbers, not feelings. The judge asks why the company paid for client development at a residential address. Grant offers a confused explanation. The judge doesn't accept it. She orders a forensic review of corporate accounts used in the marriage and directs the clerk to transmit the record for a financial fraud inquiry. She also warns Grant about misuse of filings and evidence tampering. His smile breaks at the edges. She sets divorce terms and reads them aloud. Grant's counsel argues for shared custody and a sale of the home. The judge denies both. Haley is granted sole legal custody and primary physical custody with a defined visitation schedule through the app. The house is awarded to her as part of equitable distribution, and the court orders immediate transfer of essential documents to her attorney. Grant's requests for relocation are dismissed. His attorney whispers urgently, but Grant stares at the bench, color draining. The man in the gallery stops typing. Nobody claps. Even the bailiff looks tired. Haley gathers her folder, signs what she must, and waits there. In the corridor outside, people make room without speaking. Haley walks past them, folder under her arm, Daniel and the associates splitting off to speak with the clerk. Grant follows more slowly, surrounded now by lawyers who don't look confident. A court officer stops him at a side table and slides paperwork across. "Sign here," the officer says. "What is this?" Grant asks. "Referral for financial review," the officer replies. Haley met the locksmith in the lobby with the court order folded in her pocket. Building management checked the paperwork, then handed over a temporary key card and stepped aside without an apology. The locksmith asked for her ID, glanced at the name, and carried his tool bag upstairs. At the door, he paused at the scratched latch and whistled once. "Someone tried to get cute," he said. "Not today," Haley replied. He drilled, replaced the cylinder, and tested the knob twice. Haley signed the invoice and kept the receipt. She didn't look around. She unlocked and relocked it slowly. Once the lock turned the way it should, Haley went straight to the kitchen and taped a simple weekly schedule to the cabinet. School, pickup, dinner, bedtime, therapy, court app check. No decoration, no motivational quotes. She texted the babysitter the updated address and sent the school a copy of the new custody order. The house felt larger than her walk-up, but she treated it like a worksite with tasks. At the counter, she opened the sealed bank envelope, scanned the stamp, and filed it again. Then she labeled a drawer "Documents" and left it empty for now, on purpose. The next stop was the storage locker the building kept in the basement. A porter rolled out one box with her name in thick marker, the same handwriting she'd seen on the cart weeks ago. Haley carried it upstairs herself, refusing the offer of help. She didn't open every flapped memory. She sorted. Clothes into one pile, kitchen tools into another, framed photos face down into a third. A file folder labeled "Taxes" was empty, and she set it aside without comment. When she found her child's birth certificate at the bottom, she slid it into the documents drawer carefully. On the dining table, she placed the thin folder from the first hearing beside the thick binder Daniel's firm had built. The old one looked harmless, like it belonged to a dentist appointment. The new binder had tabs, exhibits, and stamped seals that could survive a judge's patience. Haley didn't throw the thin folder out. She slid it into a kitchen drawer under spare batteries and takeout menus and pushed the drawer shut with her hip. The gesture wasn't sentimental. It was practical. Some tools belonged in reach. Others belonged out of sight until needed. Then she washed her hands. Daniel called while she was stacking plates. "Do you want us to handle the press angle?" he asked. "Your ex will try to spin it." Haley dried her hands on a towel and looked at the schedule taped to the cabinet. "Do the legal work," she said. "Let my kid live off the record." Daniel paused, the way he did when he wanted to argue but chose not to. "Understood," he said. An associate texted a link to the signed order and instructions for the deed transfer. Haley forwarded it to the building manager and requested a lock change confirmation. Marisol answered on the second ring. "How's freedom?" she asked. "I won the divorce and still have to call a plumber," Haley said. "The universe is big on fairness," Marisol snorted. "Send me the new address," she said. "I'll drop off the certified replacement when you're home." Haley walked to the bathroom and turned the faucet. The handle stuck, then released with a jerk. She shut it off before it could drip. "HR hasn't called back," she said. "They will," Marisol replied. "Just keep your logs." Haley opened her notes app and added plumber and HR follow-up to tomorrow's list. At pickup, the teacher handed Haley the backpack and gave a small nod that carried more respect than sympathy. Her child ran ahead, sneakers squeaking on the hallway tile. Outside, the car seat buckle clicked with a familiar snap, and Haley checked the inhaler pocket twice. Grant wasn't there. Only the driver waited at a distance and left without speaking. Haley drove home through traffic and parked in her spot for the first time in months. In the elevator, her child leaned against her coat and yawned. Haley adjusted the backpack straps and stepped out when the doors opened again. Her child burst through the door, dropped the backpack on the floor, and announced, "We have library books!" Haley set the keys on the hook, slid the chain, and guided the shoes toward the mat. The laces had come loose, so she crouched and tied them, double knot, the way she always did. "Snack?" the child asked. 5 minutes, Haley said. She walked to the kitchen, glanced at the schedule, and reached for a plate. The doorbell rang. She didn't call out. Haley wiped her hands on a towel, crossed the hall, and opened the door before she asked anything. Marisol Vega stood in the hallway holding a small sealed envelope and a paper bag from a deli. "Certified replacement," she said. "Stamped, signed, and boring, the way judges like it." Haley stepped aside, checked the bank seal without breaking it, and set it on the counter. "Come in," she said. Marisol glanced at the taped schedule on the cabinet door. "Look at you," she said. "Court-ordered stability." Haley handed her a pen and pointed to the building guest log. "Write your name," she said. "This place thinks paper is a love language." Marisol signed, then lowered her voice. "A friend of a friend says Whitmore's board held an emergency meeting," she said. "Nothing official yet, but people are nervous." After Marisol left, Haley walked their child to school with a certified copy of the order clipped to a folder. The secretary took the papers with both hands, like she'd learned the hard way that custody paperwork shouldn't be bent. 2 parents near the coat hooks stopped talking when Haley passed. One woman offered a tight smile and turned away. Another parent, a dad Haley had only nodded at before, held the door. "Hey," he said, "glad the pickup chaos is over." Haley nodded and didn't add details. At the desk, she pointed to the paragraph about travel. "No out of state without written consent," she said, "and changes only through the app." The secretary scanned, printed an updated authorized list, and asked for initials. Haley signed, took the receipt, and moved out of the office before anyone asked why the rules existed. On the sidewalk, her phone buzzed with a bank alert. Joint access restored per court directive. Haley opened the app long enough to confirm balances, then transferred money to cover rent and the pediatrician copay. A second alert arrived from HR. Not an apology, just instructions to schedule a meeting and return her badge for documentation. She forwarded it to Daniel's associate. Marisol texted a blurry photo of an internal memo someone had leaked. The readable line said Grant Whitmore was placed on administrative leave pending an independent forensic review. Haley saved the screenshot, then deleted the thread. Gossip wasn't useful, but timestamps were. Daniel called while she waited for the crosswalk. "Final orders are ready for signature at the clerk's office," he said. "They'll issue certified copies right after." Haley adjusted her tote strap and kept walking. "Do we need to do anything about the media?" she asked. Daniel paused. "Whitmore's team is trying to plant a narrative," he said. "We can shut it down if you want." "Handle the legal parts," Haley said. "My kid doesn't get a press cycle." "Understood," Daniel replied. An associate had emailed her a checklist: deed transfer, document return, preservation compliance. Haley printed it at a shipping store, stapled it to her folder, and highlighted only the deadlines. The locksmith's receipt went behind the court order. The plumber's estimate, because the faucet still jerked, she tucked right beside it. She called, booked the first available slot, and hung up before the man could pitch a service plan. At Foley Square, the clerk's office smelled of toner and quiet irritation. Haley took a number, waded through 3 calls that weren't hers, and watched a man argue over parking validation as if the Constitution depended on it. When her number finally blinked on, she stepped to the counter and slid her ID under the glass. The clerk pulled up the file, scanned the judge's order, and laid a thick packet before her. "Sign where it's highlighted," the woman said. Haley signed once, then again, and again until her wrist tightened. Custody, property transfer, account release. language so clinical it barely resembled the months of ache behind it. The clerk stamped each page, rhythmic and final, then pushed the certified copies toward her in a tidy stack. "I've never seen happiness weigh this much," Haley murmured. The clerk didn't smile, but someone behind her made a small sound. Agreement, maybe. Her phone buzzed with a bank alert, ignored until the clerk slid her a receipt. "Keep that with your copies," the woman said. Haley nodded. "Does Mr. Whitmore need to sign anything else today?" "His counsel will handle his side." The answer felt equal parts relief and warning. Outside, Haley slipped the certified copies into her folder and zipped it closed. Daniel's associate texted, asking for photos of the stamps. She sent them from the hallway, then pocketed her phone. At the courthouse doors, an unfamiliar number flashed across her screen. She hesitated, inhaled, and answered. "Hello?" The caller's voice was clipped. Something about a follow-up interview, a callback number, a promise to email the details. "Okay," she said, and let the screen fade to black. People streamed past her as if the hearing had never happened. This time she wasn't holding a folder like armor, only a small paper bag with a sandwich, her stomach finally remembering itself. Crossing Foley Square, she noticed a woman on a bench near the old payphones. Younger than Haley, hair pulled tight, knees bouncing. Papers sprawled around her in uneven piles. A bailiff asked her to move. She scrambled, dropped a page. Haley caught it before it slipped under a radiator. "Order to show cause," the header read. The woman's hands trembled as she reached for it. "Thank you," the woman said. "Do you know where I'm supposed to go?" Haley didn't point with a lecture. She pulled a receipt pad from her bag, the kind she used for grocery lists, and tore off a strip. On it she wrote, "Clerk's window location, the family court helpline," and 3 items in plain language: ID, proof of address, and copies of everything. She handed it over with her pen. "Do you have a lawyer?" the woman asked. "Today I do," Haley said. "But you need a pen and a copy more than a speech." The woman nodded like the paper had weight, folded it carefully, and tucked it into her stack. Haley walked on, not waiting for gratitude, because the bench was already filling with other stories. Outside, she checked the subway map, then called the babysitter to confirm pickup time. At a corner deli, she bought chicken, rice, and a small carton of strawberries. The cashier asked if she wanted a bag. Haley held up the paper sack from earlier. "I'm collecting them," Haley said. The cashier didn't get the joke, which made it better. On the way to the subway, she stopped at the clerk's window and requested 1 certified copy, the kind schools like to misplace. The clerk stamped it, slid it through, and reminded her to keep originals safe. Haley asked for a receipt, got one, and filed it with the rest. By the time she reached the platform, her phone showed no new alerts, which felt unusual enough to notice. Back at the apartment, she set groceries on the counter and texted Daniel's office the number from the unknown call. No commentary. Then she rinsed rice, started a pot, and warmed chicken in a skillet while her child colored at the table. A plumber returned her earlier message and offered a slot on Friday. "Friday works," Haley said. He asked for the address, and she gave it once, slow and clear. When he confirmed, she hung up and taped the appointment time to the cabinet beneath the weekly schedule. After dinner, she wiped the table, packed tomorrow's lunch, and opened the school folder. A worksheet on spelling words needed initials. Haley signed, then checked the court app for any new messages. Nothing came in. She opened a separate email thread from a recruiter Daniel had forwarded and replied with available times, keeping it short. Her child pushed a book toward her. "Read this one," the child said. "After teeth," Haley replied. The child groaned, stood anyway, and carried the book to the bathroom like it was a chore. Bath time turned into a negotiation over bubbles, then pajamas, then one more story. Haley set a timer and read without adding voices because she was bad at voices and didn't pretend otherwise. When the timer beeped, she closed the book and walked her child to the bedroom. "Will Dad call?" the child asked. "He can message on the app," Haley said. "Okay," the child said, accepting the rule the way kids accept weather. Haley checked the inhaler pocket, set a glass of water on the nightstand, and shut the door part way. In the kitchen, she washed dishes, turned off the stove light, and looked at the schedule again. School, therapy, plumber, new job call. The list didn't feel hopeful. It felt workable. She carried the certified orders to the documents drawer and closed it. In the living room, her child had fallen asleep on the sofa with the library book open on their chest. Haley lifted the small body carefully, adjusted the blanket, and walked toward the bedroom. Her phone rested on the table without buzzing, and for the first time in a long while, it stayed that way.